Hello students, welcome back to the online video classes. In the previous class, we have discussed that what biodiversity is. It is the variation of living organisms. Then we discussed the levels of biodiversity. First of all, species diversity, second one is genetic diversity, and the third one was ecosystem diversity. Then we discussed the global biodiversity, that is the diversity of all over the world. Then we studied the biodiversity of India. There are several hotspots in which the number of organisms are very high and they are also endemic, that is present at only a particular place. There are three hotspots in India. First of all, Eastern Himalayas, second one is Western Ghats, and the third one is Indo-Burma hotspot. Then we discussed the endemic species, the species which are present in a particular place. For example, dodo. Dodo is also an endemic species which was present previously in the Mauritius, but now due to the human activities they are overexploited and become extinct. Then we discussed the importance of biodiversity. First of all, the economic significance, that is using the wood, fuel, medicines etc. from the forest. Then we studied the biodiesel trees which are used as a substitute for the fuels in place of petroleum and thereby conserving the other fossil fuels. Then we discussed the medicinal value, in which we see how the secretions of plants leads to curing of diseases and for helping in making medicines which are more suitable than the other synthetic compounds. Third one is environmental value, in which the first point was protection of food chain, second one was regulation of nutrient cycle, third one is disposal of environmental pollution like the case of Pseudomonas putida. Fourth one is social, cultural and spiritual significance of plants and animals which are related to our culture. Then we discuss some days, important days like International Biodiversity Year, that is 2010, International Biodiversity Day, that is 22 May. Now today we will discuss the threats to biodiversity, that is the reasons of extinction of the biodiversity. So it is a natural phenomenon of extinction and also of appearance of new species. It is naturally present in the environment, but due to the human activities, you can say due to the greed of human, it is the rate of destruction is increased 1000 to 10,000 times, which is very high rate of destruction, but the appearance is still the same. So the new species are coming after a very long time, but the existing one are disappearing very fastly. So due to that speed there is a huge loss of biodiversity. So today we will discuss the reasons behind this. There are several animals which are completely extinct from the previous years. These are the Asian cheetah, Javanese rhinoceros, Himalayan quail, pink-headed duck. These were present in India in the previous time, but now they are completely extinct from the India. So let's discuss the first reason, the main reason behind the biodiversity destruction, that is the destruction of their natural habitats. The habitats, the environment, the place in which the animals are living are destroyed for the solving the human purposes, like for making the towns after cutting the forest, for converting the huge forest into the agricultural croplands, for meeting our food requirements, making buildings, industries, using the wood of forest in excessive amount. So due to this kind of excessive exploitation of the forest resources, forests are being converted into the barren lands, and due to that the natural habitats of the wild animals are being destroyed, and as forests are being cut down, so the plants are also decreasing. So in the tropical forest, which are also the Amazon rainforest, which is also known as the lungs of planet, as they are giving a huge amount of oxygen to us, these are being cut at the rate of 1.7 crore hectare per year. Due to that high rate, the plants are decreasing at a very high speed. After that, in temperate forest, approximately 1 crore hectare per annum is decreasing. These are losing at this high rate. So the majority of the species which are living in these habitats are also decreasing due to the loss of their habitats. The second point, which is related very much to this destruction of natural habitat, is the habitat fragmentation. That is not destroying the complete habitat, but we are dividing it into the smaller parts. So, the animals which have the habit of living in a large territory suffer from this, and due to this habitat fragmentation, the migratory birds which have a fixed path of moving are also being suffered. So, due to habitat fragmentation, animals living there are facing the huge problems, like they are facing the accidents, as railway tracks, the roads are being built in between the forest, and due to that they meet accidents on the railway tracks, like in the Dudhwa National Park. Half a dozen of tigers and many small animals are facing this problem. The third point is the climate change. The increasing temperature, the increasing global temperature due to the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, the temperature is increased by 3.5 degrees, and due to that increment, that change in the temperature, the earth is becoming warm, and these animals which have those animals which have adaptations to live in the cold climate are suffering. Water level is also increasing, so the chances of flood is increased. So, due to the increment in the temperature, there is approximately 70% of the species are facing the threat danger of extinction. The fourth one is the environmental pollution. The pollution in the environment due to the harmful chemicals, fertilizers and pesticides. In the Europe and North America, in the chemical fertilizers and insecticides, these are used by the farmers for increasing their crop yield, but due to that the water as well as the soil are being destructed, and the animals which are taking these kinds of chemicals are also suffering several disorders. So, due to these kinds of pollution, there is also loss of biodiversity, as the acid rain is increasing due to the oxides of sulfur and nitrogen. There is acid rain, that is the pH of rain is decreased, and due to that acid rain, the soil, the water bodies are also contaminated. Fifth one is the over exploitation of natural resources, that is using one resource in a non-sustainable manner, not using it in judicious manner. So, as the use of frogs at a previous time in the Europe and North America was increased for increasing the flavor of food. So, due to that, India also exports approximately 3,650 metric tons of frog. So, the population of frog is declined immediately. So, due to that decline, there is the loss of many other species which are dependent on the frog, and there is increment in the mosquitoes and the pest on which the frog feeds on. So, there is increment in these kinds of insects. So, looking at this serious problem, on 1 April 1987, the government of India has banned these kinds of businesses related to the frogs. So, after a while, the population of frog comes in a intermediate condition. The sixth one is the commercial practice in the agriculture and forestry, that is converting the forest into the agricultural land for the human benefits, or making a suitable variety, a improved variety of wheat, or only breeding the livestock which are suitable for economic benefits. Then only a particular variety will be more in number and the other ones will be declined. So, if there is any pandemic in the nature, then that kind of variety if cannot survive, then the whole species will be destroyed, and you may even suffer from the hunger problem. So, this was happened even in Indonesia. From the last 15 years, approximately 80% of farmers are producing a particular variety of crop or rice. So, due to that, the other varieties are declined, and approximately 1500 local varieties are completely extinct from the environment. And as you know, for the environmental resistance, for surviving in extreme conditions, we need a large number of variety of the plants as well as of animals. The seventh point is the invasion of foreign species, that is introducing a foreign organism in the native place. So, there is no natural predator of that species, and so that species spreads at a very enormous rate, and due to that the other species suffer competition, and if they are inferior than the invasive species, they will the number of the native species will be decreased. So this is invasion of foreign species. In India there is invasion of lantana, water hyacinth and parthenium. Parthenium is also known as carrot grass, which causes allergy problems in humans. So the water hyacinth, which is also known as water lily, brought in India from Brazil due to its beautiful flowers. But due to the absence of predators or consumers, this flower increased so much that it grows in the water and there is subsequent loss of oxygen. So due to lack of oxygen, the native species of plants as well as of animals is destroyed. So due to these kinds of invasive species, the native species are suffering. Like that, lantana and parthenium are also involved in these kinds of activities. The Congress grass, that is the parthenium, is imported from the US along with the wheat. So it is not brought intentionally for any other purpose. It comes along with the wheat from US in 1950s, and now it has a huge threat on the local biodiversity. After this, there are also several examples of deer. In the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the deers were introduced, but there were no consumers of deers, so the population on which deers feed are decreased and the number of deers are increased so much that they are suffering a competition. The eighth point is the superstition and ignorance. Due to our culture, due to our superstitious nature, humans are supporting some organisms or plants, but they are also destroying some other organisms and or ignoring them. They are taking special care of some organisms but ignoring the other ones. Due to that, the other organisms are suffering. Like, there are several examples. If people started to catch the gagroni parrots, that is the Psittacula eupatria in large numbers, and this resulted in their loss. Like that, the bird godawan, that is the great Indian bustard or the Ariopides nigriceps, these are considered as the sex enhancer, and due to that they are hunted in the large number, and after a while they are facing the extreme danger of extinction. After these kinds of organisms, there is one more example from the rural areas of Rajasthan, that is, there is a misconception that the breath of the monitor lizard is very harmful. So the villagers try to kill them at the very site. So because they had the superstition that the breath of this monitor lizard is poisonous. So due to the superstitions and our culture, we are ignoring some organisms or destroying them deliberately. So these were the reasons behind the loss of biodiversity. Now we will discuss the conservation of biodiversity, the ways by which we can conserve our biodiversity. Conservation of biodiversity is at various levels. So first of all, the effort of conserving the biodiversity was initiated at the international level. At the international level, a union is formed, that is IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. This union is formed by the United Nations for the protection of organisms. So, on studying the various plants and animals, they prepared a book, that is Red Data book, which is prepared by the institution in 1972. In this Red Data book, there is detail of every organisms and the levels in which they belongs. Like, some organisms are belonged to the extinct species, that is they are absent and are not present at anywhere in the world. Second one is endangered, third one is vulnerable, and like that each and every species are belonged to a particular level according to their number. So first of all, the extinct species, the species which are not found anywhere else in the world. Examples are the dodo. I have taught you that dodo was present in the Mauritius but only survived for 23 years, and due to the human activities it was overexploited. Like that, at the previous time Rhinia plant was present, which is not present anywhere in the world now. Like that, dinosaurs are also extinct species. So these are the species which are disappeared completely from the earth. Second one is the endangered species, the species which are at the verge of extinction. They are at high risk of being completely extinct and are present in very low number. So the examples of endangered species are cheetah, tiger, leopards, ginkgo biloba and sarpagandha. Sarpagandha is the Raufolfia serpentiana which releases a chemical that is reserpine. So after these kinds of endangered species, there is vulnerable species, the species which are today present in the abundant amount, but if they are exploited at the level of present time, then they will become extinct soon. So these are the vulnerable species, for example yak, Nilgiri tahar, red panda, cobra and black bug. After that, rare species, the species which are present only at a particular places and are naturally present in less number. So if even they are not exploited by the humans, they need the special protection as already they are in less number. For example, red wolf and Hainan gibbon. These are the animals which are naturally present in less number. After that, the fifth one is the insufficiently known species, the species which till now not known by everybody, even scientists have just discovered these kinds of species. So the species about which we have no sufficient information also have to be protected. So IUCN have prepared several programs for protecting the biodiversity at the international level. Like that, there are also national and state level, local levels for the protection or conservation of the biodiversity. So at national level, the Biodiversity Act was prepared for protecting the biodiversity. Like that, there is also one convention on international trade in endangered species. These kinds of conventions also works for the preservation or for the conservation of the biodiversity, that is the rich legacy of plants and animals. So there are also some Earth Convention on Rio de Janeiro. These kinds of conventions have several rules for conserving the biodiversity at the national level or at international level. So these conventions involve several countries for protecting the biodiversity as a whole. So there is one biodiversity treaty which was held in the Rio de Janeiro of Brazil in 1992, in which there is Earth Summit for the Conservation of Biodiversity, in which this convention was accepted by the 193 countries. Like that, at national level, Biodiversity Act 2002 was prepared, which have several objectives. The first objective is the protection of biodiversity. Second one is use of biodiversity in such a way that it can be available for a long time, that is a sustainable use. Third one is even distribution of the benefits obtained from the utilization of biological resources of the country, so that it can reach to so many people as possible. So first of all, protecting the limited resources, then using them sustainably, that so that we may use them for the longer time, and these resources may reach each and every individual. So these were the objectives of the Biodiversity Act. So it has three tiers. First of all, at the national level, it is National Biodiversity Authority. Then at the state level, it is Biodiversity Board. Then the next level is the Biodiversity Management Committee at the local level. Then the next one is the National Green Tribunal. These are just like the high courts. They will deal the matters related to the endangered species of plants and animals. As in the High Court, it will take a longer time, so a separate channel for taking these kinds of issues fastly, a National Green Tribunal was formed on 2 June 2010. So these were the efforts for conserving the forest at the national, international and at the state level. Also several local peoples are also contributing for protecting the organisms which are present in their habitats. So these were the biodiversity conservation. There are two types of conservation. First of all, in situ conservation, that is on-site conservation. Conserving the organism in their natural habitats, that means not disturbing their surrounding. This is the best method for conserving a species if they are in the level of vulnerable or they are rare species, because there are several biosphere reserves, approximately 14 biosphere reserves, 99 national parks, 523 wildlife sanctuaries and 47 protected reserves are present in India. So a huge amount of area and number of national parks are built to protect the organisms in their natural habitat. So this kind of conservation, that is protecting the organism in their natural habitat, is in situ or on site conservation. Like that, the second one is the ex situ conservation, that is off site conservation, conserving the organisms at a special place and removing it from its natural habitat. So there are also several banks like seed banks, pollen banks for the conservation of species. They are preserved in the very cold climate, which is known as cryopreservation, that is preserving the seeds and pollen grains at a very low temperature is cryopreservation. Like that, animals are also removed from their natural habitats and are conserved in a special place. These are the endangered species which are at the verge of extinction, and we have to deal only with a single organism to maintain the continuity of species. In these kinds of conditions, the ex situ conservation is being used. So these were the methods of conservation of biodiversity. Now in the today's class we have discussed the reasons of loss of biodiversity and the various methods for the conservation of biodiversity. Thank you.